Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to help you prep for your wire harness assembler interview. We've got a whole bunch of resources from RoleCatcher, like career guides, and of course, a ton of potential interview questions. We're going to break down what this job really entails, how to showcase your skills, and even how RoleCatcher's AI can give you an extra edge.
It really is amazing how AI is changing the game in so many ways.
So to start, when we talk about wire harness assemblers, what are we actually talking about?
It's really about bringing those electronic and electrical systems to life, the ones we use every day in our cars, airplanes, even our phones. It all starts with reading and understanding complex wiring diagrams. Then using tools like cable ties and conduit, you'll transform those diagrams into real functioning harnesses.
So I'm hearing that attention to detail is a big deal here, right?
It's super important. And speaking of important, let's talk about the work environment.
RoleCatcher mentions it can be a bit lively.
Yeah, you're typically working in a manufacturing plant, often with assembly lines, so it's definitely a hands-on environment. It can get a bit noisy and fast-paced. So if you're someone who thrives in that kind of setting, this could be a really good fit.
And it's great that the job market is pretty stable. Now let's talk about career progression. RoleCatcher outlines a really cool path, from entry level all the way up to senior positions.
There's a lot of potential here. You might start with assembling basic harnesses, but as you gain experience, you can move on to more and more complex systems. You might even find yourself mentoring other assemblers. And at the senior level, you could be leading teams, maybe even helping to design the harnesses themselves.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's definitely room to grow in this role, but of course to get there, you got to ace that interview.
You got it. And that's where those sample interview questions from RoleCatcher come in. We'll dive into those in detail in a bit. But first, I wanted to quickly mention how RoleCatcher's AI can give you an edge.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about this AI magic.
So picture this. You upload your resume and the job description you're interested in. And RoleCatcher's AI analyzes both. It pinpoints any keywords or skills you might be missing, and then suggests improvements to make your resume stand out.
So it's like having a personal resume editor.
Exactly. But it gets even better. It can also simulate an interview and provide feedback on your answers, so you can practice. The AI analyzes your performance, and then you refine your approach.
Okay, that's amazing. It's like having a personal interview coach right in your pocket.
Huh.
I love it. Okay, so let's jump into those interview questions. Let's start with the entry-level ones. RoleCatcher highlights this one. Describe your previous experience in wire harness assembly.
Now, even if you're just starting out, don't panic. Think about any related experience you might have. Internships, school projects, even personal projects. Remember that time you rewired that old lamp? That totally counts. It's all about highlighting those skills you picked up along the way, like your attention to detail or your ability to follow instructions.
You know what, you're right. I hadn't even thought about it like that. So even fixing a broken appliance at home can show some initiative and a bit of technical know-how. Now, I'm sure there are going to be some follow-up questions too.
Absolutely. They might dig a little deeper with questions like, what challenges did you face during assembly, or what steps did you take to ensure accuracy?
So they're really looking to see how you think things through and how you approach problem solving. What about for those aiming for mid-level positions?
Well, one question RealCatcher highlights is, how do you ensure the accuracy of wire harness assembly?
That's a good one. What would you say is the best way to approach that?
I think it's important to showcase your knowledge of testing equipment and quality control procedures.
So mentioning specific tools you've used and outlining your approach to quality is going to be key here. Any potential follow-ups for this one?
Yeah, they might ask something like, describe a time you had to troubleshoot a faulty harness. This is where you can really shine as a problem solver. Did you use a multimeter to check for continuity? Did you meticulously inspect each connection? You really want to paint them a picture of your process.
Okay, so having a clear and organized approach to troubleshooting is crucial. Now, what about for those aiming for those senior level roles? What kind of questions should they be prepared for?
Get ready for this one. Can you describe your leadership experience in a wire harness assembly team? And it's not enough to just say you were a team lead. You need to back it up with examples.
Right, examples are everything. So instead of just saying, I'm a great leader, tell them about that time you motivated your team to beat a deadline, or how you improved a process to boost efficiency.
Exactly. Be prepared for follow-up questions too, like how do you delegate tasks effectively? Or describe a time you had to resolve a conflict within your team.
Wow, these senior level questions really get into the details.
They do. They want to see those leadership skills in action. And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can help you tailor your answers to be even more impactful.
It's like having a coach in your corner, helping you craft the perfect response for each job you're going after.
It really is a game changer.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. We talked about what a wire harness assembler does, the work environment, the career path, and we even tackled some tough interview questions. But we're not done yet. We've got plenty more insights and advice coming up in part 2 of this deep dive.
So stick around. Welcome back, everyone. Ready for round 2 of interview prep.
Absolutely. Let's dive back into those RoleCatcher questions. One that caught my eye was, can you explain your knowledge of different wire types and connectors? That seems pretty important for mid-level and senior roles.
Definitely, it's all about showcasing those technical skills. You want to show you understand different wire gauges, insulation types, shielding, and of course, those all-important connector types.
So it's not just about knowing the names right. You need to know why you'd choose one over another.
Exactly. Imagine they ask, why would you use a shielded cable in this harness? You'd want to explain that shielded cables protect against electromagnetic interference, which is super important for signal integrity.
Makes sense. It's about showing you can apply your knowledge.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get specific. Mentioning industry standards like IKCW HMA A620 can really make your answers shine.
Okay, note to self, brush up on those standards. Let's shift gears to troubleshooting. RoleCatcher mentions, how do you troubleshoot wire harness assembly issues? That's a common one for mid-level roles.
This is where you shine as a problem solver. Walk them through your process. Do you start with a visual inspection? Do you use tools like a multimeter or a continuity tester?
Right, mentioning those tools shows you've got the hands-on experience.
And remember those star stories we talked about?
Yeah, those are great.
This is a perfect time to use one. Describe a specific time you had to troubleshoot a tricky issue. What steps did you take? What tools did you use? And how did you ultimately solve that problem?
The STAR method always helps tell a compelling story. Speaking of stories, RoleCatcher also includes questions about those essential hand tools, like crimping tools and soldering equipment.
Yeah, these questions are all about gauging your comfort level with those tools of the trade. Talk about your experience using them. Emphasize any safety precautions you take. And you guessed it, share some specific examples.
So for crimping tools, you can talk about selecting the right crimping die, or explain how you ensure a secure crimp connection to prevent problems down the line.
Exactly. The details matter. And don't forget, you can use RoleCatcher's AI to practice your answers and get some feedback on how to make them even stronger.
Oh, that's right, the AI secret weapon.
Easy to forget when we're in the zone. But that AI feedback can be so valuable.
Okay, back to the questions. What about this one? Can you describe your experience with routing and securing wires? What are they really getting at here?
It's about more than just knowing how to use cable ties. It's about understanding best practices for wire organization. Think about strain relief. Proper bundling techniques. You want to make sure the harness is functional, but also safe and durable.
So you could talk about specific techniques you've used.
Exactly. Show them you're not just throwing wires together. You're creating a well-crafted system that's built to last.
This is great. We're really getting into the nitty-gritty. Now we've been focusing on mid-level and senior-level questions. But what about those entry-level folks who might not have a ton of experience yet?
That's a great question. Even with limited experience, you can still make a great impression. One common question for entry-level roles is, why are you interested in this position?
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But how do you make your answer stand out?
It's about showing genuine enthusiasm. Connect your skills and interests to the job. Did you always love taking things apart as a kid? Do you enjoy working with your hands and figuring out how things work?
So it's more than just saying, it seems like a good job.
Right. You need to show them that you're personally drawn to this type of work. And you can even tie it back to the company. Have you always been fascinated by cars? Do you admire their commitment to innovation? Show them you've done your research.
Great tip. Now, what about the classic question, what are your strengths and weaknesses?
That one always makes me a little nervous.
I know it can be daunting, but remember, they're not trying to trick you. They want to see how self-aware you are and how you approach personal growth.
So how do you handle the weaknesses part without shooting yourself in the foot?
Choose a weakness that is real, but not a deal breaker. Maybe you're a little too detail-oriented, which can sometimes slow you down, but then flip it into a positive. Explain how you're working on your time management skills.
Turn that weakness into an opportunity for growth.
Exactly. And remember, you can always use RoleCatcher's AI to practice your answer.
Right. The AI can be like your personal branding expert. Speaking of presenting your best self, let's talk about body language.
Nonverbal communication is so important.
What are some key things to keep in mind? First and foremost, make eye contact. It shows confidence and that you're engaged. Try to maintain good posture, sit up straight, and lean in slightly.
So no slouching or staring at your shoes.
Definitely. And try to smile. Show some enthusiasm. Let them see you're excited about the opportunity.
It's all about letting your personality shine through.
Exactly. And remember, a little nervous energy is totally normal. Just take a deep breath and be yourself.
Great advice. Now, before we move on, I wanted to touch on safety again. RoleCatcher really emphasizes how important safety is in this role.
You're absolutely right. Working with electrical components has inherent risks, and employers need to know you take safety seriously.
So how can a candidate really highlight their safety mindset?
It's all about weaving safety consciousness into your answers. For example, if they ask about soldering, mention precautions you take to prevent burns. Or if they ask about crimping tools, talk about ensuring secure connections to avoid hazards.
But it's not just saying I care about safety. It's showing you understand the risks and prioritize safe practices.
Exactly. And mention any safety training or certifications you have.
Okay, that's super helpful. Now, we've been focusing a lot on technical skills and experience, but what about those all-important soft skills?
Great point. Soft skills are essential, even in technical roles like this. Employers want team players, good communicators, people with a strong work ethic.
How do you showcase those qualities effectively?
Those star stories come in handy again. Talk about a time you collaborated to solve a problem, or a time you went above and beyond to meet a deadline.
It's all about telling those stories that highlight your strengths.
Exactly, and highlight any leadership experience you have, even if it wasn't a formal role. Did you ever train a new employee? Or take initiative to improve a process?
Wow, these are great tips. It's so valuable to think about showcasing both technical and soft skills.
It really is. And remember, the interview is a two-way street. It's a chance for you to assess the company culture, too.
That's a great point. Don't be afraid to ask thoughtful questions.
Exactly. Show them you're not just looking for any job, you're looking for the right fit.
This has been such an insightful conversation. We've covered so much ground.
I agree. We've given our listeners a ton of knowledge and practical tips.
But we're not done yet. We still have some final words of wisdom and closing thoughts coming up in part 3.
So stick around.
And we are back for the final part of our wire harness assembler interview. Deep dive.
Ready to finish strong.
Absolutely. But before we get to those final tips, there's one question that always seems to trip people up. Tell me about a time you failed.
Oh, yeah, that one.
It feels like a trap.
I know it can feel that way, but honestly, it's a great opportunity to show self-awareness and a growth mindset.
So how do you answer this without making yourself look bad?
The key is to choose a failure that wasn't catastrophic, something you learned from. Maybe miss a deadline on a project because you underestimated the scope, explain what happened, own your mistakes, but then focus on what you learned and how you've improved since then.
So turn that negative into a positive.
Exactly. Show that you're resilient and committed to continuous improvement.
Great advice. Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to mention RoleCatcher's AI one more time.
Oh, yeah, that's a game changer.
For those who missed it, can you quickly recap how it can help with interviews?
Of course. So you upload your resume and the job description, and the AI analyzes both. It identifies keywords and skills that match the job requirements.
Like a superpowered resume matching system.
Exactly. And it provides personalized feedback on your interview answers. You can practice answering questions, record your answers, and the AI analyzes your delivery, your content, and even your use of keywords.
It's like having a personal interview coach right there on your computer.
Exactly. It's an amazing tool.
Okay, so final words of wisdom. What's your #1 tip for acing that interview?
Preparation is key. The more you research the company, the role, and practice your answers, the more confident you'll be.
Confidence is everything. And remember, you've got this. You've put in the work. You've honed your skills. Now go out there and shine.
We're cheering you on.
And that wraps up our wire harness assembler interview. Deep dive. We hope you found it helpful and empowering.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.